Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sumi Khairia. I'm from 11th group and I would like to explain about gender or sex. The writers have used the term gender rather than sex because sex has come to refer to categories distinguished by biological characteristics, while gender is more appropriate for distinguishing people on the basis of their socio-cultural behavior, including speech. Women and men do not speak in exactly the same way as each other in any community. In a community where men are socially superior to women, linguistic differences between men and women are only one example of more extensive differences having to do with the social structure of the community itself. There is no denying that linguistic behavior is not to be kept separate from society and its values. Some linguists believe that women are aware of their low status in society and, as a result, use more standard speech forms. In their attempt to claim equality or achieve high social status, women use more standard forms than men relates to the ways in which society treats women. For example, people are tolerant of boys' behavior while little girls' misconduct is very often frowned upon and punished on the spot. By using standard or polite forms, a woman is trying to protect her face, a term often used in sociolinguistics to denote a person's needs and wants in relation to others. In other words, a woman claims more status in society. Okay, next is about politeness. Politeness can be defined as a means of minimizing confrontation in discourse, both the possibility of confrontation occurring at all, and the possibility that a confrontation will be perceived as threatening. So, the sociocultural view assumes that each society has a particular set of social norms consisting of more or less explicit rules that prescribes a certain behavior, a state of affairs, or a way of thinking in context. A positive evaluation politeness arises when an action is in congruence with the norm. A negative evaluation impoliteness, rudeness, when action is to the contrary.
My name is Ovilia. Here I'm going to discuss about stereotype. According to Hippel and Hilton, the notion of stereotype can be described as a belief about characteristics of an individual who come from a certain community. It can be said that stereotyping other individuals or groups are treating them as they have difference with the others. We also can classify stereotype can be identified into two types. The first is conflict racist stereotype. Conflict racist stereotype arises when a group is more likely threatening to the dominant group, or in group which can emerge three different odd group images. This can be classified as the treacherous savage, the sinister Hui, and the indolent hedonist. The second one is paternalistic racist social types. This arises when a group is found as dependent one. Similar to conflict racist stereotype, this type also has different image identified as the charming primitive, retarded adults, or simple children, the domesticated animal, and pathological victim. Okay, we are going to examples of stereotype. Have two kind of group as the object of stereotype that are of America Afro-American. We also say that Negro and White American. Afro-American, the view of black is so accepted as Negro or colored people. Many whites, many, many, many whites in Europe and the U.S. in 18th and 19th centuries viewed black as mentally inferior as since from physique and culture they were undeveloped. Blacks have lived side by side in America for about 300 years ago. American slavery was such a system since when the first Africans came to Virginia. They treated as servants. Forced labor was needed to stabilize the economic system. Therefore, as racial prejudice became inherent in social culture, American slavery developed as a permanent hereditary status century tried to rise. The racial stereotype in the earliest history of America had influenced that perspective toward African American at the time. Smith said that blacks are seen as lazy, mentally inferior, violent, and bad-tempered people. These characteristics indicate the negative traits of blacks. On the other hand, blacks are stereotyped as the people who love music, religious, and having superiority in athletics. The belief that blacks are less sensitive to physical pain was a major factor determining slavery in the enslavement era. And then the second one, example is what is white American. White people were viewed as a race which had higher rank than blacks. Back then in slavery era, when they enslaved blacks. As the dominant group in America, white people always have the power brought by their whiteness. Pinder states that the concept of American cultural identity was associated with the whiteness that further the cultural norms contribute to the existence of whiteness concept and white as different. She also defined that white people think themselves as race neutral or colorblind, 18 the norm and have a sense of themselves as entitled to judge the other against their own standards. Whiteness is a social construction as it is stated by Harris as aspect of racial identity. Certainly, but it is much more. It remains a concept of certain relation of power, a social construct predicated on white dominance and black subordination. The concept of whiteness creates a gap among black and white in which the dominant group is occupied by the white. According to Cambridge Dictionary, privilege is defined as an advantage that certain person of group of people has in accordance with their position. It reflected throughout the white group as having its privilege to control the power in society. As a result, a study conducted by Peck and Gent revealed that non-white people mostly agree that in the United States, white people have their own privileges. America identically refers to white people, and white people are superior to the other racial group. Okay. Okay, we are going to the function of stereotype. Stereotype have the function to maintain the boundary definition and also to define clearly where the pale and thus who is clearly within and who clearly beyond it. Significantly, stereotype has a role to make what invisible becomes visible. It also plays part to make firm and spirit what is in reality.
And the last, women's language. Women's language indicates the characteristic of women's behavior because someone's language shows their role in the society. Women should have certain speech features to be shown in their society. Lakoff said that women experience linguistic discrimination in the way they are taught to use language and in the way general language treats them. Both of them are related with the function or the role of women in their society. Lakoff tried to describe the language of women who called Middle America. She didn't state that it is an overview all of women everywhere. Its features are as follows. First is lexical hedges or fillers. Lexical hedges are used to weaken the strength of an assertion. Hedges are linguistic forms such as I think, I'm sure, you know, sort of, and perhaps. Hedges as one example of the characteristics of women's language including could, might, may, would, and should. Fillers refer to some meaningless words that women always use, such as and etc. Second is tag question. Lakoff states that the tag question, the usefulness and syntax form in English, is among definite statement and yes or no question. Lakoff argued that asking a question is the best example of insecurity and doubt women. Third is rising intonation on declarative. Lakoff stated that related to the use of syntactic rule, she found a widespread difference perceptible in women's intonation patterns. There is a peculiar sentence intonation pattern found in English only among women which has the form of declarative answer to a question and is used as such but has the rising inflection typical of yes no question as well as being especially hesitant. Fourth is empty adjective. There are a group of adjectives in terms of vocabulary which has a specific meaning and literal and also indicate approval or admiration speakers to something. Adjectives such as these are called empty adjectives, which mean that it only concerns the word emotional reactions of the specific information. Fifth, precise color term. Women give details of color are much more precise in naming terms than do men. Sixth is intensifiers. The kinds of intensifiers that indicate more characteristic of women's language are so, just, very, and quite. Seventh, hypocorrect grammar. Lakoff states that hypercorrect grammar is the consistent use of standard verb forms. Lakoff said that hypercorrect grammar involves an avoidance of terms considered vulgar or coarse, such as ain't, and the use of precise pronunciation. 8. Super polite form. Lack of state that a request may be in the same sense a polite common in that it doesn't overtly require obedience, but rather suggests something be done as a favor to the speaker. Women prefer to use polite language than men. 9. Avoidance of strong swear words. Swear word is a kind of interjection or exclamation to express anger with extreme and has been considered a powerful expression. This is seen as a powerful language and sometimes really can achieve impressive effects. And the last is empathic stress. Empathic stress is a typical of special stress that is given by the speaker to some word in a sentence, usually to single out, compare, correct, or clarify things. Well, that's all from Group 11. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.